to an inclusive gender security strategy. Our community engagement and exchange with local partners made us aware that mothers have a unique but untapped potential to play in security. So this was when we decided to conduct an in-depth research study asking, can mothers actually challenge violent extremism? This study surveyed over 1,000 concerned mothers of adolescents to understand their experiences with radicalization in their families and in their communities across Pakistan, Palestine, Israel, Nigeria, and Northern Ireland. We came to the conclusion that mothers are well situated to address early warning signs of radicalization because of their place in the heart of the family, but that they generally lack the appropriate space, structures, and the training to develop this potential. Based on the findings, we built the Mother Schools Model Parenting for Peace. The Mother Schools provide much needed safe spaces, which were also highlighted yesterday in our discussions, which are free of any ideology, religion, and politics. Since 2012, we've rolled out Mother Schools in 16 countries. The participants learn about early warning signs based on developmental stages of children and adolescents and break the silence around taboo topics in their families and communities. The mothers strategize and go on to coordinate individual and group action to address and uproot toxic influences and hotspots. It is important to note that this educational prevention approach does not stop with the mothers. It starts with them. We often neglect their multiple identities, from leader to colleague to mother to friend. Each one has a wider sphere of influence that goes beyond their families and into their communities. In a way, they become agents of openness and challenge conversations and attitudes in their surroundings, at home, in their friendship circles, in their work environments, and beyond. We have seen them become real role models, and I would emphasize this role model piece. They become role models to their children and in their communities. Many go out to speak in public forums, on TV, radio. Some have started their own NGOs as a result. Every Mother Schools generation contributes to changing the way the community addresses taboos and civic dialogue. In every case, it challenges mainstream prejudice and impacts the way the next generations deal with violence, extremism, and gender. So it is very much intergenerational work. So I would, as we also did yesterday together in the discussions, also like to highlight that gender obviously does not denote only women and girls. We must engage our male counterparts as well to fulfill the whole of community approach. Over the last several years, Women Without Borders conducted an in-depth research study with fathers in East Africa about their potential and their role in PCBE. The findings from the study can be found on our website, but the response was overwhelmingly positive and showed an eagerness on fathers' parts to become more involved in their children's lives. Much like the mothers, they were lacking the skills and the knowledge and also the confidence to do so. We have since piloted father schools in Austria and Germany, and will roll out another project in Belgium next year. I would just like to stress, as was discussed yesterday, that we must work with all stakeholders if we want to achieve a gender-inclusive society and a gender-inclusive approach in our work. So, this is the work of Women Without Borders, and I will leave you here with a few recommendations for how we can effectively and sustainably engage women and girls in PCBE and build a whole of community approach together. When we think about today's session, I would argue that the very first step in institutionalizing and operationalizing women and girls in the PCBE space is recognizing and acting on their leadership potential. Only then will the voices and nuances be heard and understood. This must be done at every level, from the grassroots to the national to the international levels. So I will talk about how we translate this approach into action, and I would like to wrap up with the following 4 steps to broaden the security sphere and create a gender-inclusive PCBE approach that recognizes and involves women and girls in PCBE. First, we have to activate networks, such as the SAFE network, to identify female role models and local leaders worldwide. They are voices of reason and access in their communities and have the unique capability to translate policy into action. Secondly, we need to redefine the security arena to be more women-centric and gender-inclusive. We must normalize and institutionalize the notion of women and girls in all aspects of the security sphere. Thirdly, we need to convene grassroots women leaders and policy shapers for empowered and active dialogue to further the women-centric agenda and movement. And lastly, we need to expand the definition of security. We must shift the way we look at safety and security to include the whole spectrum of threats to individual and collective safety. This includes all forms of gender-based violence, which can be drivers for violent extremism. I would say that particularly this gender-based violence is an overlooked driver in our field. Mm-hmm. So, thank you all for your time and your preparation. I look forward to participating in the breakout sessions shortly, and I hope we will all stay in touch in the spirit of female diplomacy and collective change making. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Schlaffer. We really appreciate you sharing that almost 20 years of experience working in this field. And I'm sure, it's going to really inspire a lot of discussion in our breakout groups. And I've just asked, unfortunately, people to reserve their questions to Dr. Schlaffer until the plenary, or at least to discuss within your breakout groups. I'd now like to just introduce and turn to Ruby Khalifa, who is the Secretary General of Aman, Indonesia. And Aman is also a unifying force for peace and social action in Asia, and was founded in 1990, so 30 years of experience there. Ruby has been active in the women's movement in Indonesia for years. She is really prolific as a trainer, a resource person, a researcher on women's human rights, on religion, gender justice, sexual and reproductive health. And she is the Aman representative for Indonesia, and she has been leading in the country on PCVE and gender responsive approaches. Ruby, we just have 5 minutes before we go into the breakout group. So I know you're so succinct, so greatly appreciate your thoughts and comments.
All right. Thank you, Professor Jackie. So I'm actually, with the 5 minutes, it's really nervous, but try to catch up the best as I can. So the Asian Muslim Action Network, in particular in Indonesia, have been working on the strengthening community resilience in 39 communities in 7 provinces in Indonesia. So in the last 13 years, we believe that empowering women is the best and the answer when we talk about a conflict, even a PVE. And our strategy to change the community is by organizing the interfaith women and by establishing the Women's School for Peace. It is a regular class as well as the outdoor class, and continuing facilitating the interfaith mothers in responding the challenges in the community, as well as engage with the government. What I want to share with you here is 64% of the Women's School for Peace running right now in 39 communities recognized by the local authority as the incubator of women leadership and women groups to promote gender equality and women inclusion in decision-making process. That actually giving a lot of impact to the community comparing to those who are not recognized yet. What are the impact is you will see that in every year during development planning, they present their proposal there, and they recognize representing the voices of the community. And then in regular consultation relating with the gender equality, the government always call to the women group, and in particular commitment for the designated budget for gender equality.